we have these two cats in the backyard who, even though they fight every day, they wake up at 9 a.m. every morning and they choose violence. They will fight for an hour till the dog comes. Now, you'd expect the dog coming barking in, wants food, the cats would disperse. That does not happen. The cats stay together, they come together as a team, and they guard their food from the dog, who has now been reduced to a whining mess completely and will whine for the next 20 minutes, begging the cat to let him go have his morning breakfast.
I did come across once something which startled me, and now I feel less surprised about it after all that you have talked. And that's about the monkeys. Besides human beings, monkeys are the only animal that yawns. But then among monkeys, I read somewhere that there is a custom, sort of, you may say,
Right.
that no monkey yawns in the presence of an elderly male monkey. It would be considered as a disrespectful.
Okay. Wow.
Namaste, my dear brothers and sisters. I have with me here Shivani, a sweet child of the sweet mother. Uh, she has a master's degree in English literature, and of course, that she did a long time back. But since then, she has been doing quite a few things. But more importantly, in today's context, she has spent the last 4 years in Goa. And she'll introduce herself, tell you something more about herself and her life in Goa.
So I suppose Goa is a place that has, in our collective Indian imaginations, is a very interesting place. And its lifestyle of Susegard is something everybody wants to perhaps live in. So here are some Malgudi style stories from the heart of the village I live in. And as for me, I grew up here in the Delhi ashram, went to school at MIS, and always had a love for a very simple life that is connected with nature. And having grown up in that, I think has allowed me to also um, connect even deeper with the nature that Goa is so famous for. Its plants grow so quickly in the monsoons. The forest comes back up within minutes, it seems like. And so I wanted to tell you to share some little stories about the animals that live in my backyard. The chickens, the dogs, the cats, even the rats sometimes. There is a grand ecosystem that has its own play and its own maya. And it's such a great pleasure to observe that. The first thing I think we talked about was talking about the hierarchy that I have noticed within animals, the animals that exist there. Uh, you would expect, Vijani ji, for animals to have a very specific hierarchy. We have an idea, don't you think, of um, you have dogs at the top food chain, and then you have cats, and then you have birds, and then you have rats, right? Rats are eaten by most of these animals. Birds are usually attacked by cats, and dogs usually attack the cats. In my backyard, it's extremely different. I'm not sure why that happened, and maybe Bijlani ji will give you an explanation eventually about why and how that could happen. Um, but we have these two cats in the backyard who, even though they fight every day, they wake up at 9 a.m. every morning and they choose violence. They will fight for an hour till the dog comes. Now, you'd expect the dog coming barking in, wants food, the cats would disperse. That does not happen. The cats stay together, they come together as a team, and they guard their food from the dog, who has now been reduced to a whining mess completely and will whine for the next 20 minutes, begging the cat to let him go have his morning breakfast. There's enough for everybody because the whole entire village sometimes puts their food there for waste management, etc. So it's not that there's not enough resources for all the animals in the backyard, but the cats have taken over and the dogs are not allowed. That it has also happened that there have been sometimes it's just one dog against two cats. So you would assume that, okay, there's a group dynamic going on. So a couple of cats against a dog, they can, scratch their noses, whatever. I have unfortunately also seen multiple dogs get cowed by these cats. They sit there like mafia bosses, while the dogs and the puppies get on their front two paws and legitimately beg the cats to let them in. Interestingly enough, when the dog runs off, the cats resume fighting again. They will go back to whatever fight they started off with uh, the moment the dog leaves. So, in front of the other species, they're together, but between themselves, they can't stand each other. So, it's a very interesting dynamic that we see. And I think humans as well have this. Why don't you take away that part and talk about how this connects to humans, perhaps?
Sure. So there is a fight within the family, but
Hmm.
then when it's an outsider involved, then the family comes together.
Hmm.
Only till they have to deal with the stranger from or someone from another family. After that, the fight will resume. So, I mean, so many things which you are talking about, we take as characteristically human,
Hmm.
but then we find them in animals too. I mean, that's very interesting.
Yeah, there's another thing that the chickens I have seen. Within this hierarchy of animals, there is the next part of the hierarchy are the chickens. While the cats might look like mafia bosses sitting on the wall, sunning themselves after their very long fight. Um, In come the chickens. Now the chickens cluck around and they're very peaceful. Usually I mean, they wake us up very early in the morning, but other than that, they keep to themselves till they get annoyed by the cats. Normally, out in the wild, the cats should be eating the baby chickens or, be attacking the birds. In our village, that does not happen. The chickens get frustrated and they just rush at the cats to shoo them off because they're annoyed by their yowling. And so many times I have seen these cats getting afraid of the chickens and just running away, just breaking their fight up, a fight that the dogs apparently couldn't break up, gets broken up by these tiny little chickens. And it's such a interesting reversal of what we expect out in the world for me. Um, though again, in these stories, the chickens sound like the heroes, but when it comes to the chickens versus the humans, a very interesting thing is I see some very interesting things, which is the anxiety of chickens. I did not know chickens were an anxious being. But for me, it's almost like they're an embodiment of this human stress response. It's how humans sometimes just go into their heads and we look at stress coming in and we lose our minds even before it comes. And the chickens do exactly the same thing. You'll have a mummy chicken in one corner of the tiny little village roads with its babies, sunning itself, very peaceful. And then this one scooter has to go through that road. It's not in any way even going to touch or bother the chicken sitting in the corner. But the chicken, for some reason, gets into its head that this big machine is going to somehow attack them. Now, that could be a fear for wild animals living outside, but these are scooties and bikes that they see every day. And yet, they're so they get it into their heads that they have to cross the road. Why did the chicken cross the road? Because they were anxious, apparently. They get it into their heads that they have to road before this scooter comes in. Now, sometimes I have noticed that the chickens do cross the road. You would expect, okay, you've reached your goal, now you're chill. You thought you had to go from left to right, and once you've done that, you have achieved your goal, now you're peaceful. Nope. Even while the motorist will be coming closer and closer to the chicken, that chicken will go left to right to right to left to left to right to right to left. It never stops till the bike has passed and gone away. And then it again sits down and it's peaceful. But once you know that secret, you realize it's always in fear of another bike coming. It's always looking out for this imagined danger that is all that always passes it, but it never touches the chicken. In fact, everybody in the village is extremely careful about them because they're prized possessions of other people. So they're very well taken care of. So never in their lives have they experienced being hurt, at least these village chickens, because they're just used for their eggs. So it's a very interesting for me study. I think we think that it's only humans who have this fear response, perhaps this, well, not fear response, it's this anxiety of things. And maybe Bijlani, you can explain why we do this, why we look at dangers that might exist in the world but don't affect us and still lose our minds over it.
Well, I mean, you can imagine animals having all these behavioral features which sound quite human. We can relate to them because, after all, we are all manifestations of the same divine. But the details are, in fact, quite educative for me too. I was not familiar. I have not lived in the type of atmosphere in which you are living these days. But I did come across once something which startled me, and now I feel less surprised about it after all that you have talked. And that's about the monkeys. Besides human beings, monkeys are the only animal that yawns. But then among monkeys, I read somewhere that there is a custom, sort of, you may say,
Right.
that no monkey yawns in the presence of an elderly male monkey.
No.
It would be considered as a disrespectful.
Okay. Wow.
Again, something we can easily relate to as humans, but to
Right.
find it in a monkey is
Hilarious.
interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, we sometimes have a lot of these rules and regulations we perhaps create that we are not, when you look back, you're not even sure why you're doing it. It's just because everyone else is doing it, I suppose. Well, do our animals do something like that within, I mean, animals in general, the animals that I live around also, they have their own rituals and I think ways of being, and especially having lived around humans for so long, perhaps they have also oh yeah, one interesting thing, like thinking about this, the cats, for example, because there's a lot of fish in Goa. My cat, the one I have, has a tendency to meow constantly. She talks a lot. And the other cats notice that she gets food if she meows. So these burly cats, wild looking cats with cuts on their faces who look like pirates, have now started meowing in the most babyish ways to get everybody's attentions. And it works. So perhaps, I don't know, rituals maybe start there. Maybe at one point it gave them something, and then suddenly an entire village of cats is meowing, even if they don't get the fish that they wanted. Um, so it's very interesting to see our own self reflected in these animals. Um,
So the cats can sort of vary their mewing. Mewing is not
yeah.
just mewing, you know.
No, 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 no.
Even a wild cat can mew in a way as if it's pleading or.
Yes.
And why don't you tell about that thing which you talked once about the cat understanding you, being able
Oh,
to
yeah.
communicate with you and being able to say yes or no in its
So
own way?
my cat, she grew up, she as a baby, her brothers were given away, they were adopted. This one was a very anxious cat. So she would stay around her mother all the time, also stay around. Eventually, when she got comfortable with humans, she started coming to us, etc. But she had always therefore grown up around people. She had grown up listening to human voices, and we fed her since she was born, etc. We took care of her mother. And now that we have adopted her, first off, she meows. I have never heard a cat talk this much. She also likes to just be in the middle. Like if Bijlani ji and I are having a conversation, if she was here, she would be at the center, just listening, sleeping and listening. She has a tendency to just, she loves human conversations. whatever language that she might be a multilingual cat at this point. She understands Gujarati, I have noticed, French and English, and Bengali now. Now that my mother talks to her in Bengali. Um, this cat, because of all the languages that are being thrown at her every day, we humans have inflections and tones that we don't always realize that we do. There are some that are very unique to people, and there are some that are social cues, right? This cat has picked up on those and now has very distinct tones for yes and no, or I want food and I want to go outside, or play with me, I'm bored. So those are the main three things. And if you live with her longer, then you'll also notice more things like she's sad or she's really happy or if she's just bored and what those things, look like. So that's more of body language plus the tone. But she has a very distinct, like if I'll ask her, do you want to go outside? The meow she tells me will tell me, no, I want to stay home and chill, or I want to go outside and play. The fact that she has picked these up so quickly and has been able to use them as a form of communication with us is absolutely incredible. And not only that, the reason I say she's multilingual is because our neighbors used to be Gujarati. So they used to speak to her in Gujarati. They used to ask her the same things because I told them this is how I trained my cat, that I ask her instead of just assuming she wants something. So they started doing the same thing in Gujarati and she started saying yes or no to them. So now we are pretty sure she understands Gujarati as well. And she also comes like if I'm on the phone with my mother and we always speak in Bengali. So she's aware that Bengali is only spoken in a very specific time, which is when my mother is on the phone. So doesn't matter where she is, she will come and she will say a meow, she'll say a hello, and then she'll go away. So very, very human characteristics this cat has developed, I suppose. It's very interesting.
You said your mother has spent a long time with the poultry, the community of cocks, hens, and chickens. Yes. So how she's able to communicate with a cock
Oh,
in
yes,
your
that story.
backyard?
So my mother grew up in a massive farm with cows and goats and chickens and every type of animal there is. So she has, I was not aware of this, the perfect hen voice. She can do a amazing hen voice that apparently bamboozles the chickens as well, the cocks as well. So she comes over to my house in Goa, and you have these chickens and cocks and hens, and they're just all having fun in the sun. It was winter time, so they were out in the sun. And my mother starts to do her hen voice. And this cock comes running to the balcony, underneath the balcony, looking up like, God, is that you? And my mother starts like continuing, and these two every morning since that for like a week or so, they ended up having conversations. I have no idea what they were talking about. I don't think my mother knew either what she was saying, but for this cock, they were having a conversation. They were talking about something because they would stand there for an hour or so, just going back and forth. And there was something that was happening. And when my mother left, this one cock kept coming back trying to find my mother and never did, obviously. Though my mother did one time on the phone, like we put it on loudspeaker and she did make the noise and he came running back. Though then my mother was like, I should stop doing that because then then at least he can like let it go. If I don't know what's happening, otherwise he'll be depressed or something. So to see this attachment in animals. Even my cat, the attachment I see in her when I have to leave, the sadness, these emotions in these animals that we see. It's every cock, every hen, every chicken, every cat, every dog has its own very particular character. And the way they show it, the way they communicate it, it's absolutely incredible to watch. So beautiful. But those are my stories.
Thank you, Shivani, for
Thank you for
sharing all
having
these
me.
experiences, which show that the fact that we are all manifestations of the same divine is not just something theoretical or which can be experienced only by the
No,
mystics.
no.
Even at a mundane, ordinary level, you have
Yes.
shown how so much of animal behavior is similar to human behavior,
Mm-hmm.
which points to our common origin and essence. But not only that, because of this common origin and essence, we are also able to communicate across species.
Yes. It's a wonderful feeling. Just get a cat and you'll understand this connection between the divine and human.
Sure.
Thank you for having me, Bijlani.
Thank you, Shivani. We hope to have you again.
Hope to
For
be
sharing,
here again as well.
sharing more stories. Thank you.
Thank you.